language. And tonight, we are going to talk about evaluating messages. Okay. I know this is very significant, very important for students, not just students, but for everyone to evaluate messages. Why do you think evaluating messages is an important topic to discuss in purposive communication? As it is as important as knowing the appropriate register to use in a particular situation, in a particular set of audience, and a particular topic that you will be discussing. Can you at least tell me the reason why evaluating messages is just as important as knowing the appropriate register? You can type your answer in the chat box. You can also share it directly if you want to. So why do you think evaluating messages is important for students, for professionals, for everyone, every person? Why do you think so? Can you give me a reason? So you can type your answer in the chat box. Okay, someone's raising her hand. Let me check. Okay, Francesca, you're acknowledged.
Good evening, sir. I think, sir, that evaluating messages is very important for different levels of people because it signifies or reconfirms rather that we actually understand what they mean when they send the message to us.
Okay, thank you so much, Francesca. So, evaluating messages is important for us to be able to know what is the real intention, what really is the true meaning of what we are reading or what we are receiving. Sometimes we overthink, sometimes we over generalize, or we interpret it in a manner that, the interpretation is not actually right, or it's not actually in accordance to the intended meaning of the message. And with the prevalence of social media, evaluating messages is so important. Why? Because we are overwhelmed. We are inundated by a lot of messages, right? Sometimes we would ask ourselves, are these messages that I'm receiving truthful, authentic? Are these believable? Are these facts? Or these are just lies? That is why it's very important that we know how to evaluate messages to make sure that the things we are getting, that the messages we are getting are actually real and authentic, and that they contain facts, not fake news, not lies. So let's check here our objectives for tonight. We have 4 objectives for this session. One is to identify individual elements, aspects that contribute to the message. Second is to analyze the functions of such elements toward the attainment of the message. Third is to distinguish moods, motives reflected. And finally is to illustrate certain characteristics of effective messages. Okay, so to begin with, let me share with you this a flash fiction. I want someone to read it. May I ask? Okay, let me check from the participants list. May I ask Ira Jane to please read the flash fiction on the screen?
They found her in a basket one cold night outside the big tent, clearly abandoned. The lion tamer, the bearded lady, and strong man came out to stare at her sucking her own tube. She's double jointed, one exclaimed. They took it as a sign they'd raise her as their own.
Okay, thank you so much, Ira. Okay, let me just repeat it. They found her in a basket one cold night outside the big tent, clearly abandoned. The lion tamer, the bearded lady, and strong man came out to stare at her, sucking her own toe. She's double jointed, one exclaimed. They took it as a sign they'd raise her as their own. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Since we are evaluating messages here, I'd like you to answer a couple of questions that I'll be asking. And then we would evaluate the text based on the evidences that we can see on the text itself. So my warning here is never assume, never hypothesize, never provide hypothetical answers. I want you to give answers which are um, supported with facts, with evidences, with ideas on the text itself. Okay? So the first question is, who are the characters in the story? Who are the characters in the story? Who can answer the question? Okay, you can either type your answers in the chat box or you can also raise your hand to answer. Who are the characters in the story? You have to give me later, you have to give me the evidence that proves your answer. Who can give me the answer for the question? Can you give me the characters of the story? Okay, Lisa May. You're acknowledged, Lisa May. Okay, I think she unraised her hand. Who has an answer? Who are the characters in the story? Just give me one character. You don't have to give all the characters. You can give me one. Okay, so according to Ivana, the lion tamer. Okay, who else? Her. Okay, who is this her? Okay, bearded lady. Okay, bearded lady, correct. So we have the lion tamer, the bearded lady. Who else? Okay, the strong man. Hmm? Okay, the double jointed girl. Okay, so you have mentioned here, okay, very good, Audrey, for enumerating everything here. The lion tamer, strong man, bearded lady, double jointed girl. Okay, it's actually very interesting, right? Bearded lady. I don't know if you've seen a bearded lady, but perhaps a bearded lady exists, right? I've seen I've seen women with facial hair, so I think it's just normal. Now, I want to ask another question is, what did they find in the basket? What did they find in the basket? Can you tell me what they found in the basket? You can type your answer in the chat box. What did they find in the basket? Okay, any response? A girl, that's from Suzette. From Audrey, I guess her a baby sucking her toe. From Vian, it's a baby. Okay, a baby, just a baby. Okay, so you don't know whether it's a girl or a boy, or yeah, the gender is not revealed yet, but there's a baby, right? Um, can you tell me if what kind of baby is it? Is it a human baby or an animal baby? Or a baby animal? Give me clues. If it's a baby girl, then what do you think are the clues that made you decide in your inference? I mean, made you infer that the baby is a girl, it's a human being. And what made you say that it's a baby lion? Okay, let's entertain first Clarice's answer. She said it's a baby girl. What are the clues here that would tell you it's a baby girl? Do you have any clue here?
Double jointed, sir.
Double jointed. What do you mean by double jointed?
She has an arms, long legs.
Okay, she has arms, legs. She can more or less. She is flexible. She can bend her joints. So double jointed like us. So you can bend our human beings. Okay. Um, but I'd like also to entertain. Why did you say that it's a lion? It's a baby lion, not a baby girl. Another answer here from Ira. It's a baby lion. Why is a baby lion? Okay, a baby lion. So there's a pronoun or addresses her. She's double jointed. Okay, so it's a baby girl according to Audrey because she addresses her. She's double jointed. But my question here is it common for a baby to suck their toe? Have you seen a baby sucking her toe? Ivana?
Wala pa, sir.
Me, in my
Yes,
40
sir.
in my 40 years of existence, I have not seen any baby sucking her toe. That's kind of strange, right? But according to Suzette, she saw, a baby sucking her toe. Really? Your sister? Your brother? Okay, sucking her toe. So which means that it's very flexible, right? Sucking the toe. Okay, so I'll accept that answer. Okay, another question is this. If that is your um, answer, let me ask you another question. Where did the story happen? Can you give me the setting of the story? Okay. Can you tell me the setting of the story? In a circus? Would you put up a tent in a circus? Okay, I'll take it. Cybele, Wayne Alpai. She said in the forest. It's possible in the forest because, if you want to go camping, you would put up a big tent, right? Um, well, a circus, I don't know. I haven't seen anyone putting up a tent in a circus unless that you are part of the circus itself, right? But in a normal setting, in a normal situation, when you put up a big tent, it should be somewhere else, far from civilization. It could be in a mountain, in a forest. That's right. If you were in the mountain or in the forest, I wanted to put yourself in the position or in the shoes of the characters. If you were in the forest, we can draw also answers from personal experience. Would there be other people in there? Is it possible for other people to be in there? Yes, it's possible for other people to be in there. But is it possible for someone, a mother who gave birth, perhaps, or a mother, a single mom who doesn't want to have her baby, leave her baby in the forest and put it in a basket, for example, near the tent of these people? Is it likely to happen in a scale of 1 to 5? What do you think is the level of likelihood that that experience or that incident or thing would happen in a scale of 1 to 5? The possibility that a single mom, would go to the forest and intentionally leave the baby in a basket, for example. Is it possible? Okay, so I think you're silent. But if I will ask you also if it's possible for a lion also to leave his or her baby in the basket, perhaps it would also be very unlikely. So both situations are actually unlikely, right? But who do you think the lion tamer, the bearded lady, and the strong man are? Who do you think they are? What is the relationship that these characters have? Is it possible that the lion tamer refers to the bearded lady and the strong man? Is it possible that both the bearded lady and strong man are lion tamers? Because if they are lion tamers, it's possible that um, the baby that they found is a lion, a baby lion, a cub, perhaps. But if you look into the clues here, the lion tamer is just written as lion tamer, not lion tamers. So because if you say the lion tamers, the bearded lady, and strong man, then you would say that both of them are lion tamers. But lion tamer here is just written in a singular form with a comma, which means that they belong. I mean, lion tamer belongs to one of the parts of this sentence, like the lion tamer, comma, that's one person. The bearded man, the bearded lady, comma, and strong man, okay, came out to stare at her sucking her own toe. So if you are going to analyze this short flash, of course, flash fiction is a short story, you would be able to draw a lot of inferences, right? And the inferences sometimes are, of course, not sometimes, but all the time, should be based on the evidences or the pieces of evidence, the clues that you can get from the story itself. Okay, so maybe it could be a lion, it could also be a baby. But the thing is, one thing is for sure, what they found in the basket is actually a baby. I mean, it's a baby because it's being mentioned here. And there are clues that would also tell that it's a baby. Okay, now let's move on to another um, situation here. Okay, so I'd like to read it first. Perhaps I can ask someone to read. Okay, can you do it for me? Um, okay, so can you do it? Okay, let me ask. Okay, I want to hear. Can you read it, Ariel? Please open your mic and then read the conversation here.
Hi, sir. Ang tanong niya conversation, sir.
Yeah, please. Yeah, go ahead.
How are you feeling? Dude, what happened last night? I think my arm broke and my car is wrinkled. Well, you are so drunk that you climbed to the top of the garage. You started yelling, na 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 Batman, then jumped off and landed on your car. And you didn't take me to the hospital. I was too busy laughing.
Okay, thank you so much, Ariel. Okay, so I will read again the conversation. I'd like you to reflect on the conversation and tell me your responses or your answers to some of the questions that I will be asking later. How are you feeling? Good. What happened last night? I think my arm's broken and my car is wrecked. Well, you were so drunk that you climbed to the top of your garage. You started yelling, na 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 na, Batman, then jumped off and landed on your car. You didn't take me to the hospital? I was too busy laughing. The first question is, what's the mood of the conversation? Can you tell me the mood of the conversation? You can type the answer in the chat box. What is the mood of the conversation? Anyone? You can type the answer in the chat box. What do you think is the mood of the conversation? Let's talk about the mood. The mood of the conversation. Is it okay, humorous, according to Ivana. Okay, thank you. So that's the mood. It's humorous. Okay. So it means to say that it's not a very serious, heavy conversation. It's just a light conversation, right? Can you tell me the exact meaning of the word? How are you feeling? Why do you think Alfred asked his friend? Okay, or maybe okay. So if Alfred is the one in green, then I mean, if the friend is the one in green, then Alfred is the one in white. So let's presume that Alfred is the person whom this message was sent to. So why did his friend ask Alfred, "How are you feeling?" What is the exact meaning of this statement? How are you feeling? Can you tell me the meaning of the word of the sentence? How are you feeling? Anyone? How are you feeling? You can relate this to your personal experience. When do you ask someone about this question? Okay, according to Saibel, Alfred is trying to inform his friend about him being drunk last night. Is that the exact meaning of the statement? How are you feeling? Okay, Laika, he is concerned. Okay, that's right. Um, the friend is concerned of Alfred. It's a sign of concern, right? How are you feeling? It's a sign of concern. Okay. Alfred said here, dude, what happened last night? I think my arm's broken and my car is wrecked. What is the meaning of this statement? Can you tell me the meaning of this statement? Dude, what happened last night? I think my arm's broken and my car is wrecked. Can you tell me the meaning of this? Okay, according to Francesca, he is confused. Okay. What do you mean by I think my arm's broken? Confused or shocked? Okay. What do you mean by I think my arm's broken? Confused, worried? I think my arm's broken. What does it mean? Okay, very good, V and Grace. He felt some pain. Okay, he might felt pain in his arm. That's right. But as to the cause of the pain, he didn't know, or the cause of that made his arm hurt. He didn't know about this, right? What is meant by the statement, and my car is wrecked? Okay, my car is wrecked. Of course, I know that you might have seen a wrecked car, right? So definitely the car is broken. Could be that there are some dents on the car, right? He said here, okay, the friend of Alfred said here, well, you were so drunk that you climbed to the top of your garage. You started yelling na 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 Batman, then jumped off and landed on your car. And you didn't take me to the hospital? I was too busy laughing. Okay. Now the question is, why did Alfred's friend did not bring him to the hospital? Why? Why do you think he didn't bring Alfred to the hospital? Did Alfred really break his arm? Did he really break his arm? Okay, definitely Sam. I think not. Um, of course, if you're a friend of Alfred and you know that your friend is in a bad condition, definitely you would bring him to the hospital, right? But knowing here, seeing that he's just laughing, then it's quite obvious that the incident was not a serious one, right? If I were to ask you, what is the relationship of Alfred and the other guy? What is the relationship? Best friends. Very good. They are friends, but they are not just friends. They are maybe best friends. Okay, why best friends? Because if you are best friends, you are concerned with each other. Of course, you know how to deal with your friends. And looking into the conversation that we have here, it looks like they are really having a good relationship, right? Like best friends, best of friends. Thank you so much. Okay, last, I want Audrey, can you please read the conversation here? Okay, I think Audrey's microphone is not working. May I ask Sam to read it, please?
Okay. Dad, there's a moth on the outside of the bathroom door. Can you get rid of it? please hurry because I'm going to cry. Dad? Dad? Dad is dead. You're next. Love, Mott.
Okay, thank you so much, Sam. You're such a good actor. First question is, what is the mood of the conversation? Okay, Audrey's unstable connection. Yeah, it's okay, Audrey. Okay, what is the mood of the? Okay, it's scary for Brazil. Okay, what else? I felt scared, threatened. Okay, it feels scary. So it felt scary or threatening. Okay. Maybe if it is in a horror movie, definitely this movie would really, you know, send you goosebumps, right? But according to Vian, it's light or laughable. Yeah, that's right. Maybe you have experienced when you and your dad are teasing each other, right? Especially over little things, perhaps. Can you tell me the gender of, you know, the the child here? Can you tell me the gender of the child? Okay, a girl, according to Ivana. Okay, thank you so much. We are not stereotyping here, okay? But normally we are looking into the evidence like going to cry. Of course, I'm not saying that boys don't cry. Boys do cry too. But this is something that we normally see or we normally hear from girls saying like, oh, I'm going to cry if you throw that to me, or something like that, right? So maybe you are right. She could be a girl and the mood is fun. It's actually they're teasing each other. So it's just the light moment between the dad and the daughter. My question is, how do we evaluate messages based on what we did earlier? How did we evaluate the messages? Can you tell me one thing that we need to consider in evaluating messages? Can you type the response in the chat box? You can raise also your you can click the raise button if you want to answer directly. So according to Francesca, we evaluated messages by looking into context clues. Very good. From V and Grace, we evaluate messages based on the atmosphere of the situation. So we have also to evaluate the mood of the situation. And for us to be able to do that, context clues are very important, right? Ivana asking series of questions related to the message. That's right. It's like you are doing a monologue, not really monologue, but you are soliloquizing maybe. You're asking yourself a lot of questions. Is this true? Can this really happen in real life? So something like that. So a lot of questions related to the message. Very good. According to Sabel, to evaluate messages, one thing to look for clues on the messages being conveyed. Thank you so much. That's very important. And one thing that you shouldn't do, never overread or never overthink. Do not overthink, do not overread. When you say overread, you are giving answers already or you are giving conclusions which are too hypothetical, too much, too far away. Okay? So, which means that your responses should be within the context of the message. Do not go beyond it, just within it, but never underread also, because that is not also acceptable. That is not advised in evaluating messages. So in evaluating messages, we have to look for context clues. We have to look for the mood or identify the mood of the conversation. We have to ask plenty of questions about the message itself. That's how we evaluate. And perhaps if you are really a critical thinker, you might even consider where the message came from. For example, what is the source? Who is the source of this message? We all know that social media has become a very powerful tool in communication nowadays. And we have seen a lot of people sharing messages, right? And sometimes the sharing has become a chain, sharing of chain messages. And some people are very quick at sharing chain messages without even reading the content of it. That's something that we have to avoid as students of purposive communication. We have to consider also first of all, the content of the message, the source of the message. And of course, we have to ask questions, a lot of questions, whether or not the message is believable, truthful, and honest information. Now, looking into the principles of evaluating messages, it says here that the importance of evaluating the effectiveness of our messages is by developing and using strategic questions to identify strengths and weaknesses. Ivana mentioned about asking series of questions related to the messages. That's right. Why? Because we have to identify the strength. We have to identify the weakness or the weaknesses of the message. That's why we ask a lot of questions. What is the mood of this situation? Who is drunk in the story? Is it Alfred or his friend? Right? Who is really drunk? Because if you are sober, you would never forget things, right? If you're drunk but not too drunk, you can still remember things. But the thing is, Alfred didn't remember anything. He could be very drunk, right? So, which means that when you evaluate messages, you look into different angles. And it is also important to consider looking into various lenses. Your lens, your the author's lens, or you also put yourself in the character, you know, in the character itself. I mean, in the character of that story, for instance, if you are reading a story. So, which means you are interacting. And for you to be able to do that, I mean, for you to do that, you have to learn first, asking questions. Look for clues, look for pieces of evidence that would lead you towards the right inference or the right message that the story or that the conversation is conveying. This is how we illustrate it. This is when we evaluate a message, we look into the importance of evaluating a message by developing strategic questions to identify strengths and weaknesses. We do not evaluate messages right away because that is not good. That is actually making judgments, right? We don't want to be judgmental. When we see a message, we always give it the benefit of the doubt. So you have to analyze it. And for you to be able to do so, you need to ask questions for you to be able to identify the strengths and weaknesses. Questions must be on point. Like, who is the source of the message? What is the message about? Okay. So is this truthful? Is this authentic? Okay. Is it worth sharing? Why is it important to ask these questions? Because when you share messages and the sharing would multiply and multiply, if it is a fake news you are sharing, it would become true. I mean, it would be considered truthful already. It would become a fact already. Why? Because lies shared 1,000 times become a fact or become facts. That's why, as much as possible, we have to break the chain of sharing fake news. And your knowledge about evaluating a message is very important. As young as you are now, it's good. It's really brilliant on your part to be able to know how to evaluate messages, because the targets of trolls normally are younger people because they are easy to persuade, easy to convince. And trolls are, of course, they are people working illegally, you know, spreading news. And we want to stop them because that is something that it is a responsibility of users, internet users. That is part of our responsible use of social media, responsible use of the internet, and being part of this growing internet users. We need to value authentic messages. And for us to be able to give more value to it, we need to follow certain rules on how to evaluate messages. And that's very important for us. When we evaluate messages, we look at them through several lenses, which is helpful as culture is arbitrary in nature. Sometimes the statement is a little bit easy to understand, but if you keep on repeating it, you would be able to realize that, oh, there are hidden meanings on this story. So we have to dig deeper into those hidden meanings. And for us to be able to do that, we have to look at it in different lenses. Your lens, the character's lens, and the author's lens. Okay? Unlocking messages is central to evaluation. When we unlock a message, it's quite important, very, very important. And in communication, in purposive communication, it's really important. Being mindful to elements that make up the bulk of the illustration will help the reader assess the meaning of the elements. That's why we have to break the bulk of illustrations or messages into digestible or probably understandable elements. So we have to break them down. Sometimes information can be overwhelming, right? That is why we have to take it one step at a time for us to be able to digest and to understand every pieces or every piece or bit of information that we are receiving. Now, these are the guide questions in unlocking messages. So when you unlock a message, you do ask yourself plenty of questions. What kind of questions? Strategic questions. First question is, what is the general motive of, if you're looking at a picture, for example, you don't just judge the picture right away, right? People nowadays seem to be very judgmental, right? If we are like that, then we haven't learned anything about purposive communication. So when you look at the picture, you have to be judged. I mean, you have to analyze first the mood of it. What's the mood of the picture if you're looking at the illustration? Second is, how does the motif reflect interrelatedness of the elements? Okay. Third, what objects, elements stand out? Okay. Fourth, what objects, words seem out of place? Fifth, what culture prevails in understanding the meaning conveyed? And lastly, what general note can be drawn from the picture? So these are among the most important questions, strategic questions that we ask ourselves when we analyze or unlock the hidden message of a picture or a painting, for example. Okay. What about when we are evaluating a message? Okay, from a story, from an email, from messenger, from text messages, for example, from SNS. So here are some questions. One is, what is the message conveyed? Okay. Second, I know that you have experienced receiving a message from an unknown sender, right? That's very common, right? So you have to understand it first before we respond. Because if that message is coming from a scammer or it's a spam message, it's not worth your response, right? That is why it's important to know first, what is the message conveyed? Second, what belief is used to support the message? Okay. Is this message real? You won 100,000 pesos. Please give me your credit card details, for instance. So what belief is used to support the message? You would say, oh, I haven't even betted on the lottery before. I mean, I haven't remembered myself betting on the lottery, for instance. So there's no point I would win a 100,000 peso box, right? So in what way is the message best delivered? Okay. So of course, when you're looking into, like when you are creating your own message, to what extent is the impact of the message felt? Should have been extent. And who is the addressee of the message? What ethos does the message support? Ethos, when talking about ethics, right? So these are among the questions that we ask ourselves. Now, note here is to pin down a meaning to something without acknowledging the culture of the author is considered an offense. That is why even songs have hidden meanings, and the meanings of the songs are unlocked, are revealed by knowing the time when the song was composed. So that's part of it, right? And even in stories, we have to consider also that part. I remember I joined a national training 2 days ago in Manila, and one of the speakers was a writer. He was an author of flash fiction, a lot of stories he wrote. He went to America to present his works. One of the stories he presented was about an OFW. Okay, so there was this story of the wife of an OFW who is left in his house while her husband is working outside the country. They have one child, a boy, for instance, and one night there was a blackout in in their area. In the US, they don't experience blackout. Even in Japan, they don't experience blackout. They don't know what brownout is, rather. They probably have experienced blackout, but if you say, oh, we have a brownout here, they don't know what brownout is because they don't have that kind of experience. So, if you share something, I mean, if you are reading something that is different, the experience is different from your own, you would maybe think that, oh, what is the meaning of this? I mean, if you judge or if you interpret the message based on your personal understanding without acknowledging first the author's culture, it's an offense. That's why you have to understand first, right? And then when the electricity came back, the child saw his mom and his uncle getting outside the room. Okay. So in other countries, they wouldn't have any inkling what happened, right? Because probably they haven't experienced that a husband went to another country to work, although that can happen sometimes in other countries too. But here in the Philippines, it's quite common that someone's working abroad and someone is probably staying in the Philippines, something like that. So that alone has a very, cultural meaning. And if you are reading it and you're not a Filipino, you would never understand it. It would be difficult to understand it. But after knowing the culture of Filipinos, definitely you would be able to decode the hidden meaning of that. You would be able to infer that, ito palang nangyari. No? There was infidelity, something like that. So in evaluating messages, it's very important too. First, it's to know the culture of the author so that you would be able to identify the meaning according to the context clues that you have found, according to the deductions that you have made based on the evidence that you have or the pieces of evidence that you have gathered, and based on the questions that you have asked yourself. I have here another flash fiction, and I want someone to read it, and then we will tell the meaning of this. So may I ask, okay, I hope Kyla's internet is okay. Can you please read the flash fiction in the screen?
Jesus walked out into the rain after midnight, thinking of ways she could win back all of the money she had lost at the poker table that night.
Okay, thank you so much, Kyla. Jess walked out into the rain after midnight, thinking of ways she could win back all of the money she had lost at the poker table that night. First, let us answer some literal questions. Okay. First question is, who is the character in the story? Then type the answer in the chat box. Who is the character of the story. Okay, thank you so much. Very good, Jess. Okay, can you tell me what happened to Jess? What happened to her? Okay, first, where did she go? Okay, where did she go? Okay, she lost all the money playing poker. Okay, thank you, Sam. Someone said in the casino. Okay, yeah, definitely it's in the casino, right? Okay, what else? Audrey's answer is in casino. Okay, thank you. That's correct answer. Okay, now I'd like you to infer. How much money do you think Jess lost? And then give me your reason. According to Sam, a lot. Okay, actually, it says here he had lost all of the money. This is not just a lot, all of the money. Okay. Um, okay, because she wouldn't feel okay, perfect, Sam. She wouldn't feel that way if it's small money. Excellent answer. A lot of money for she's been thinking too much. That's so true. If you were to give me a figure, how much money do you think she lost? If you could give me a figure, is it a 5-digit number, 6-digit number, 4-digit number, 3-digit number? How much money do you think she lost? According to Ivana, it's a 6-digit number. Possible. 100,000. Francesca, it's 1 million. Okay, 6-digit number. Okay, 1 million is 7-digit number, right? 7-digit number. Okay, well, yeah, depending on how rich you are. Maybe Vian is a millionaire. If Jess lost a million, right? Just imagine that if you lost millions of money, definitely you would never care. You would no longer care if you're soaked in the rain, right? You would no longer care. Why? Because you lost a lot of money. Wow, very good. You answered, you deciphered the meaning of the text by looking into clues and also by putting yourself or looking into different lenses, right? Next. Okay, look at this picture. Tell me the things that stand out in the picture. Can you tell me the things that stand out in the picture? Okay, please type your answers in the chat box. Tell me the things that, okay, the child, okay, V and Grace, vulture and almost dying child. Okay, present child. Okay, correct. Malnourished child. Okay. Okay, that's correct. I'd like you to look also at the surroundings. Okay, what do you see in the surroundings? Can you identify some objects that you can see in the surroundings? Something that is visible. What do you see in the surroundings? Okay, trees. Okay, we do have stumps. Yeah, we have trees. Yeah, we still have trees. Tree stumps, right? Trees that were cut down. That's correct, Sam. These are parts of the tree trunks. Yeah, tree trunks or tree stumps. Okay, forest maybe in the back. What else? What have you noticed at the ground? Can you describe the ground? What can you say about the ground? Dry. That's right, dry. Maybe there you could see like some green parts, right? Maybe there is still grass growing, but not enough grass. Okay, now let's go drought according to Vian. Vian is already inferring, right? You're not just giving me the literal things that you can see, you're already inferring. So let's move on to the higher level of evaluation. That is inference. That's a time that we infer based on our pieces of evidence. Now tell me, can you infer what happened to this picture? Okay, actually the answer of Vian is correct. This is drought and famine. Okay, I hope you are able to follow through the questioning, because if the question is asking only literal answers, please do not go beyond, because that is again over reading, right? So we only do one step at a time. And as you can see here, there's drought and there is famine. Okay. Now, what message is being conveyed in this picture? What do you think is the intention of the author or of the photographer in taking this picture? What is the intention? Can you tell me the meaning behind the picture? Why did the photographer take it? Can you tell me? Actually, this picture won a Pulitzer Prize. It's an award given to like photographers, like people in the magazines, like yeah, photographers and other musicians. Okay, so according to Francesca, the level of tragedy in that country causes life to vanish. Okay, but what is the message that the photographer wants to convey to the viewers? What is the message? Okay, not to cut too much trees. Okay, Ira is an environmentalist. According to Sam, there is no food for the both of them, or yeah, for the vulture and the child. According to Generose, it's poverty. Okay, so it's poverty. But if this is posted, for example, in a Time magazine, what do you think is the purpose of the author to post this on a Time magazine, for instance? According to Sable, there's a child suffering in every country. According to Rosaline, to allow people to know that there's poverty in some places around the world. According to Vian, to show that there were people who are just dying, not having enough opportunity to prosper, and very unfortunate. Okay? On the highest level, okay, on the highest level, what do you think is the purpose of this? What is the message that the author or the photographer wants to convey? Have it crossed? Okay, we need to help. Very good, Francesca. We need to help as much as we can to those who are in need. We should help unfortunate countries. That is so true. It can be either addressed to the UN, right? Or to UNICEF, to see and to provide help, especially to those countries that suffer hunger and famine and drought, for example, right? To send help, to send aid, right? Pictures are not just pictures for us to like or to show emojis of crying, love, or something else. If that is something that needs help or assistance, it's our job, it's our duty, of course, to shell out, you know, any amount that we can contribute to help that people or that person in need, right? So it's a good way of showing our generosity to others. But of course, one thing that we have to always remember is that never buy on whatever you see online. You have first to check the source, and when you shell out money to help, make sure that they would go directly. They would go safely to the people in need, right? That's why we have different charities and we donate through charities. So in short, the motive here is definitely it's what's the motive? If you're going to give me the motive of this picture, can you tell me the motive of the picture? Just by looking at it, what is the motive of the picture? The motive is, what is the mood of the picture? There's a child there. She could not even stand, right? Sadness. Very good, Roslyn. It's sadness, right? And if you look at it, who wouldn't be sad looking at this girl, dying girl, with a vulture behind her? And that vulture, we know the characteristic of vultures, right? They feed on deceased or dead bodies. So if this child will die, then the vulture will take over. That's why it's very sad, because if no one can help this child, she would die. And that vulture would feast on her dead body. So feed the child, not the vulture, according to Danilin. Okay, thank you so much. According to RM, the vulture, Claire, the vulture in the background is waiting for the child to die so that it can eat it. So it's very sad, very, very sad. And perhaps we are just lucky in the Philippines that we haven't experienced this kind of sadness, like you can see here, dying of hunger and then being eaten eventually by an animal, such as a vulture, right? So this is a very strong picture. It has a strong emotion, strong impact. So when you take a picture, it should be like this. There must be a subject, right? And the subject must be clearly seen. And as you can see, the background, everything, it's just perfectly taken. That's why this picture won a Pulitzer Prize. And that's not a simple award that is given to someone. It's an award that recognizes, recognizing someone, doing exemplary on the field of photography, for example. So it's very, very moving, picture. What about this one? I know you have seen a commercial like this. Hanggang saan naabot ang 20 mo? What message do you think? Oh, okay, let's start with what you can see. What do you see here? What do you see in the picture? Can you tell me? Okay, money, that's right. What else? Okay. A question. Okay, a question. A man in the barber shop. Correct. A guy in the barber shop. Okay. Person in the barber shop. Very good. Now, let's make an inference. Okay. So, what is meant by the statement, hanggang saan naabot ang 20 mo? What is meant by that? Being frugal. May I ask you, how much does an ordinary haircut cost now? Can you tell me how much is it? 40 pesos? Wow, that's brilliant. Here in Cabancalan City, I can't find that. 40 pesos barbershop, 50, maybe 50. Good for you, Sam, because you can still, students, maybe, yeah, you're right. Maybe students can avail the 40 peso haircut, right? 50 pesos, correct. The usual haircut that I get from the barber shop that I used to visit is 60 pesos. So, but if you go to SM, for example, right? If you go to David's Salon, you have to pay 200 for men and more than that for women for a haircut, right? So if you have 20 pesos and the amount or the cost of a haircut is now 50 to or 40 to 50 pesos, do you think it would be enough for him to pay for a haircut? Definitely not, right? Definitely not. No, definitely. So the question is, what is the meaning that is intended by the author for this particular commercial? What is the meaning of this commercial? Can you tell me? What does it tell us? What message does it tell us? Someone said it's being frugal, yeah. What can you buy for 20 pesos? Roslyn is trying to translate it to English. Sable, the limit of your budget. Okay, correct. The things that you may access or buy for 20 pesos. Okay, right? Correct. Indeed, you are students, right? You are students because you are asking money from your parents, right? You depend from your parents. That's why you are not able to capture the real message of the picture. Actually, this picture talks about inflation. You know inflation? Okay? So the cost of everything now is high, right? Before I remember, before the pandemic, yeah, or earlier than that, the cost of gasoline was just 50 pesos or 55 pesos. But now it's already 61. Come on, it's price hike. Exactly, Cybel. So just imagine everything is getting more and more expensive. Even your tuition. I know that there's a plan to increase your tuition. So that alone is an example of sana abot ang 20 mo. So at this very moment, your 20 pesos is just like 1 peso before when I was young. So now 20 pesos is just a small amount of money, right? Because of the price hike, because of the inflation rate, because of the rising costs of basic commodities, right? That's why it's a sad thing. If I were to ask you what is the mood or the motive of the picture, what would be your motive? What would be the motive? Can you type it in the chat box? The motive? What is the motive or the mood of this picture? According to Ivana, yeah, it's happy. Okay. What else? Funny? To think critical. Okay. Okay, good. What else? Sarcasm. Okay. Exciting. Okay. You are using actually your lens. At the lens of the students, it could be happy, no? Kasi we've seen a commercial like this one, di ba? Sa naabot ang 20 mo, tapos there's this item that you can buy, right? But according to Prezil, it's sadness. Yeah, it's true. Actually, I would agree with Prezil in the context of economy. It's sad. Why sad? Because of the inflation rate, our the value of our money is decreasing. If you may have noticed, if you go to the market now, if you go to the supermarket, I usually go to the supermarket on Saturdays, and every time I buy something, my 1,000 pesos, my goodness, it cannot buy everything that I need for the whole week. Which means to say that everything is really rising in price. That's sadness. You're right, Prezil. Because we cannot buy what we want due to its expensive price. That's so true. Sadness. And now we are being alarmed. I think, yeah, alarming. It's alarming, right? That's why we need to save. We need to be frugal. We need to value money because our money's value is decreasing. And if the value of money is decreasing, then everything goes high. Everything becomes expensive. And if everything becomes expensive, we can only buy less of what we used to buy with our money, right? Which is why it's something that is alarming. It's something that is sad. Well, it maybe is fun for younger people, but for people who are earning money, this is a sad thing. The motive is sad. It's sadness. Because with your 20 pesos, I do not know what you can buy with your 20 pesos now, aside from, a big ice. So probably an ice even costs 10 pesos, right? So masyadong mahal na, pati na yung ice, no? Even candies now, I think you cannot buy 50 centavo candies. So it's very expensive. Everything is getting expensive. So that's quite alarming. Okay, so these are easy steps before evaluating messages. So we have to consider one is to determine what you will evaluate. So is it a picture? Is it a message? Is it a text message? So you have to know the context first, the topic that you will be evaluating. Define your goal. What is your goal for evaluating a message, for instance? What is your goal in evaluating? Okay. Third is to state your objective. Okay. What is your objective? Specific objective. Fourth, identify your audience. Okay. Who are your audience? Okay. Are they students? Are they teachers? Are they farmers? And then establish your baseline. So it's very important to have this baseline. That's why knowing the culture of the author is very important in evaluating a message so that you would be able to at least acknowledge the author. And by so doing, you are showing your respect to that author by not misjudging the message that is being conveyed by the statement. There are four main qualities for an effective message. One is simplicity, another is specificity, third is structure, and fourth is stickiness. So when you say simplicity, so in order to evaluate a message, we have to reflect, okay, so when we say simplicity, in order to ensure that our messages have simplicity, we should ask ourselves two questions. One, is my purpose evident? Third, is my core message clear? When you are making a message. That is why when we are sending text messages, when you are sending messenger or messages on messenger, I would prefer students who write their messages in complete sentences. There was a time when Digimon language became popular, right? Especially on text messages, on social media. But I don't I don't subscribe to that. I don't consider Digimon as effective. Why? It can just cause us a lot of disadvantages. One, our ability to spell words would diminish. Second, our ability to comprehend the statement would also diminish. And the third, we would be able to send or to cause conflict if the statement will be misinterpreted by the receiver of the message. That is why for us to be able to show simplicity in our message, write it in a complete sentence, beginning with a capital letter and ends with a proper punctuation mark. That is my advice to my students, and I hope you would do that. When you send me a message, when you use a question mark, you use only one question mark, because if you put two or three question marks, that would send a different message to me, as if you are showing a strong feeling of emotion. So it's not good. So you have to identify first the purpose and the core of your message. What is the core of your message? Am I beating around the bush, or am I saying the intent right away? So you have to identify first, because if you're talking to someone who isn't close to you, for example, asking that person, how are you feeling after the night out, it would send a message, a different message to someone, right? Like, oh, did this person have a crush on me? He's checking on me, so for example. But if you are close to that person, it's just easy for you to say, oh, how are you? So I think that message would mean differently, unless you have another intention. So which means that you have to know first the purpose of your message. The core must be clear. Secondly, its specificity refers to our choices of language and its usage in order to ensure language is specific. We may ask ourselves. So these are questions. Is my language specific? Is my language concrete rather than abstract? Instead of using the word flabbergasted, why not use the word shocked, right? So instead of using frightened, why not use the word I'm scared? So you have to use words which are easily understood. I am using words which have additional meanings and could perhaps be misconstrued. So you have to avoid words with double meanings, right? Especially words like what do you call it? Words with multiple meanings. So you have to avoid them because it might be misconstrued. Especially when sometimes when our way of reading, the juncture, okay, that we sometimes use when reading can affect greatly the meaning of the sentence, right? For example, the lion tamer, the bearded lady, and the strong man. So it's understood that the lion tamer are both the bearded lady and the strong man. But if you read it this way, the lion tamer, the bearded lady, and the strong man, so that can mean that there are three characters in there. So which means that that message alone can mean differently when read differently. That is why we have to be specific. Make sure that the statement is written in a way that it can be easily understood by the receiver. Third is the structure. Ideas should be organized and easy to follow. Does my structure or does my message have a structure? Is there a more effective way to arrange my ideas? You have to be very careful with that as well, because structuring your message may also have different meanings on someone who would receive it. So that alone has, a different meaning. So we have to be very careful with that. Stickiness means ideas must stick to your mind, and does my message appeal to the audience? That's very important. Is it appealing to the audience? Sometimes people would write in uppercase letters for words they want to emphasize. So they would also do that. Or they would even italicize it. You can do the same thing. Whenever you feel that this statement or this word needs to be emphasized, you can either italicize it or type it in bold letters or have it capitalized or, write it in upper cases. So that can put emphasis on that. And it would stick to the mind of the reader, of course. That's why powerful words can be very impactful if you know how to use it. So stickiness is also very important. So in evaluating messages, it is important to critically evaluate images you use for research, study, and presentation. Images should be evaluated like any other source, such as journal articles or books, to determine their quality, reliability, and appropriateness. Visual analysis is an important step in evaluating an image and in understanding its meaning, and its meaning also. So which means that before we get a picture from the internet and put it in our presentation, make sure that you got it from the right source. That's very important. Know the source, identify the source, and then choose only what is appropriate. And for you to be able to do that, you have to analyze the visual effects as well, especially for images that you are getting online. Okay? So there are 3 steps on evaluating an image, and these are: 1 is to identify the source, 2nd is to interpret contextual information, and lastly, to understand implications. So these are very important. Identify the source. Where did this image come from? Is it a commercial? Is it did it come from an economics book, for example? So you have to look into that, and then interpret contextual information. What information do I get from here? Like what we did earlier when we analyzed the flash fictions, when we analyzed the pictures, right? We tried to interpret the contextual information, and from these contextual information, we were able to draw out the implications. Like you mentioned about the motive, so that's the implication already. Or you made mention about the real message being conveyed, sadness, for example, because of the increasing prices, inflation, for instance, poverty, for instance, hunger, and asking for help, from different organizations. So these are different implications that can be drawn out of the contextual information that you got from the message. But of course, identifying source as the initial step in evaluating an image is very important. And for the content analysis, what do you see? What is the image all about? Are the people in the image? Are there people in the image? What are they doing? How are they presented? Can the image be looked at different ways? How effective is the image as a visual message? You're right. Actually, earlier when you said that it could be a funny message, the one that sana abot ang 20 mo, it could be fun at the same time, but it also has a very strong meaning when we talk about economy, we talk about inflation, right? But on the lighter note, I think it can also be a fun picture. Okay. For visual analysis, how is the image composed? What's the background and what is in the foreground? So background, foreground. So in the picture of a dying child, that's on the foreground. And in the background is a vulture. So that's very strong image, right? What are the most important visuals? Oh, that's very important as well. Of course, the child and the vulture, right, in that picture. And the source of the image. Where did you find the image? What information does the source provide about the origins of the image? Is the source reliable and trustworthy? Was the image found in an image database, or was it being used in another context to convey meaning? So these are important things that you have to consider and to have to ask yourself when you evaluate an image source. And for the technical quality, is the image large enough to suit your purpose? Are the color, light, and balance true? Is the image a quality digital image without pixelation or distortion? That is why it's very important that in choosing message, in choosing pictures or images, you have to see to it that it's not pixelated, that the image is taken with a clear copy, right? High definition, so to speak. Is the image in a file format that you can use? So these are important. And for the contextual information, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I think that's all for our topic on evaluating messages. But before we end, I'd like to ask a couple of insights that you have actually, we can draw, insights that we can draw, you can get from our discussion today. Can you share me some of your insights?